Okay, I know that people are going to be coming in as I'm speaking, and that's quite okay. I just want to say welcome, welcome to an evening of cultural conversations. My name is Carol Ross, and I'd like to welcome you to the annual evening. This is our 8th annual evening, and the program this evening is We Carry Our Stories. Each of our storytellers have been shaped by history, cultural expectations, and migration, either by choice or necessity. Tonight, we'll hear more about how they have learned how to thrive while navigating challenges, embrace those lessons learned, and provide support to others who may be having the same dreams. So before we get started with our program and introduce our guests, Teresa, next slide. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge this land as the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people and the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish and Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We take this opportunity to honor and express our deepest respect to the original caregivers and caretakers of this land, a people that are still here, continuing to honor their heritage. Next slide. I know many of you have been on the Zoom platform for over 2 years, but I still want to just do a quick overview. We're familiar with the mute and unmute. And for the most part, we're going to be quiet, except for those who are telling their stories. Towards the end of the program, that's when you're really going to have an opportunity to chat, and that's going to be in the conversation rooms. Next. Please turn on your video. It's always good to see who is with us in the gallery, and for the storytellers to be telling a story and being able to see the faces. So that's wonderful. Next. For chat, okay, the chat window is open, but I'm going to ask if you could reserve chat until the end of the program, because often it can be a little distracting. We may miss the story. We may miss that special thing that a storyteller is going to share if we're also reading the chat. So if you can be present and not utilize the chat until we get later into the program. But you're welcome, through the gallery to, show signs of support and emojis. That is great. You can change your window size so you can see the gallery and also see these slides. Next. Speaker view is good, although we're going to be spotlighting the speakers, so you'll be able to see us. Next. We have activated closed captioning, and you should be seeing down at the bottom of your screen a live transcript. You may need to click on that little button that has the CC down below. It says live transcript, and enable the subtitles. Next. Okay. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mark Heilman, Neighborhood Outreach Manager, who is going to be welcoming some special guests that we have here this evening. Mark?
Great, thank you, Carol. And we are just also appreciative of the work that you put into for many weeks and months to prepare for this evening, the speakers, the environment, everything. You just do such a wonderful job of gathering us and helping us to have great conversations as we hear and share stories, and then share some of the things that we learned from the speakers this evening. Tonight, it is my honor to be able to introduce one of our council members to provide the welcome from council. This evening, our council welcome comes from Council Member Janice Zahn. Janice has lived in Bellevue since 1994, and she has been on City Council since 2017. She has a number of interests and expertise, but one of the things I would highlight that fits so very well with this evening is that Janice is committed to ensuring that the City of Bellevue continues to work to be both more inclusive and to celebrate the richness of our culture. So Janice, thank you so much. You are always with us. It's great to have you to be able to provide our welcome this evening. Councilmember Janice Zahn.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be here, even though it's virtual. I mean, as you know, I wish we were able to be in person, because I think that the conversations can be so much richer, and yet we are here, we're continuing the program. And so welcome to this meaningful night of recognizing the lived experiences and migration and personal journeys that shape each and every one of us and who we are and our influence on others. So we are our stories is such a deep part of that, because the more we know about each other, the more that we can be in community together. So I look forward to hearing the stories of community members who carried their personal culture, history, and passions with them to Bellevue and are sharing them with us. They also carry their hopes and dreams for the future in their stories and migration. And as you know, in Bellevue, our vision is to welcome the world and see our community's rich diversity as one of our key strengths. We get the chance tonight to share in the experiences of others and use these experiences to enrich our community and our very relationships with each other. These conversations, we believe, will tear down walls of division that can sometimes happen due to misunderstandings and build bridges so that we can deepen our understanding and our connection to each other, something that is just so needed in all corners of the world. And as we gather tonight, we recognize that millions have been displaced from their homes in Ukraine. And we send prayers to the Ukrainian community, both in Ukraine as well as locally, for the challenging times right now that they're going through. And our hope is that the conflict will end soon and that Ukraine will prevail as a democracy. And so those stories that they're carrying are stories also of us. And as we move forward, we think about their stories as our stories, their peoples as our peoples. And the thought of having to leave their homes carrying only what they have in their few belongings is tragic. And I will just share personally that I don't know that I've actually shared this with the Bellevue community, but many years ago, my father was born in China, and in the late 40s during the Cultural Revolution, he and his siblings fled to Hong Kong. And, you know, I think about those times, and as a child, he never talked about it. And what I always heard is that, you know, when you get to these painful, traumatic times, sometimes it's too difficult to even talk about. And so as I think about what's happening around the world, these are just so meaningful. And so for some, the areas that they're going to return to will be nothing like the community they once knew. They'll be forced to rebuild their cities and their lives, and that is just tragic as well. So for many others, they will not be able to return to their homes at all. And then there are members of the Ukrainian community who live elsewhere, including in Bellevue, that are grieving this loss, experiencing anxiety, sadness, and helplessness for their fellow Ukrainians. Also important to point out that these actions of war do not reflect the feelings of many Russian Americans who call Bellevue home. So we also lift up the Russian community here and abroad that condemn these actions. The experiences and stories of those displaced from their homelands will go with them to make their new home a richer place, one where we hope the lessons of history are not lost, but that are shared, learned from, and their understanding spread to others. So for tonight, I invite you to be fully present as we immerse ourselves in the sharing of these journeys from our speakers, celebrate what we have in common, value the stories that have come with each of us on our individual paths, and find ways to use our experiences and knowledge to support each other. So thank you so much for being here and the deep listening and connection that I know we're going to have as part of the evening. So I'll turn it back to Mark or Carol to kick us off.
Yes. Thank you so much, Councilmember Zahn. Thank you for the support for this community and for sharing your own heartfelt story carried by your family, your father. We so appreciate your support of this program now in its 12th year. And I also want to say thank you to our city manager, Brad Miyake, who has allowed employees to have the flexibility to manage our work and take care of our health during this pandemic. And finally, the community, thank you for your support as we've been virtual these past 2+ years. Thank you. Next slide, please. So tonight, over the next hour, we're going to hear 3 different stories from the community. Then you'll have an opportunity to share in small group conversation for about 25 minutes. Mark and I are going to try to stay online to about 8:15 for those of you who might like to continue the conversation, as we put away the refreshments and, take away the coffee cups. But at this moment, in this space, if we could honor some agreements, let's commit to a safe space for connection and conversation. Let's be present for each share. I know we do a lot of multitasking when we're in this environment, but if you could just stay focused and be here right now with those who are going to be sharing their stories so you don't miss a word that they're saying. Understand that a single person does not speak for everyone who looks like them. Let's respect those who are brave enough to tell their story. Let's be sensitive to topics that should stay in the room and share what is good. And what I would do is I would invite you, to maybe have a piece of paper and a pen beside you. As things come up, you may want to write a note, what sparked a connection in your heart, in your mind, so that you're able to share more about that when you're in conversation. In our conversations, let's allow everyone an opportunity to share. And when you are sharing, be sure to use I statements as we speak from our own lived experience. Next slide. We carry our stories. We carry our stories, especially when we must leave family, friends, precious items, and familiar places by choice or because we have to. The stories can be both the lightest and the heaviest items accompanying us on our journey. So what unlocks those stories? Sometimes, in doing this work, I find that we don't know that our stories carry value, so we keep the stories to ourselves. Often what it takes is it takes kindness, empathy in a community where we create a space to genuinely connect, share, or offer a level of support. Sometimes the offer to share comes from someone who has gotten to the other side of that challenge and wants to share so that others might learn from their experience. Tonight, we'll be speaking about migration stories, but really the carrying of stories is true for those of us who have never had to leave a place. It's about moving from a dream, an experience, or a perspective to being in a place of experiencing something new. Next slide. When I think about migration stories that have been shared over the past 12 years at Cultural Conversations, I think of the stories of a very special group of women from Ukraine, Tatiana, Natalia, and Larissa. Next slide, please. Tatiana, or Tanya, as you might know, or may recognize, has taken amazing pictures at Cultural Conversations and of the immigrant community who have also shared their story in a photo exhibit. She truly captures the personality and heart of the community. And I'm going to show you a few of those pictures right now. Next slide. Maya from Russia. Bulent from Turkey. Karat from Zanzibar. Ludmila from Ukraine. Kudia from Senegal. Jorge from Colombia. Ruchika from India. They carry their stories. When I think about these women, I also think of Natalia in the center there, who shared her love of Ikebana, the art of arranging flowers, at the Botanical Gardens this past fall. I also think of Larissa. You may know her from the community. She may be on the call this evening. ESL and culture coach, who is always spreading her message of love, welcoming in Bellevue and on the East Side. Including this past fall, she helped organize a Ukrainian folk performance in Redmond. Thank you, Tatiana, Natalia, and Larissa. We are thinking of you, your friends, family, and extended community of Ukraine during this time of heartbreaking challenge, and pray for a lasting peace. Next slide. It is my great pleasure to introduce Sujata Agarwal. Some of you may recognize Sujata for the work that she does for Sophia Way and Eastside Pathways, where she writes, tells stories, creates conversations, and manages websites. Sujata came to the US in 2015 from India with a career in corporate communications, telling the stories of Tata, the largest company in India. Now, coincidentally, when Sujata first arrived on the East Side, she was invited to cultural conversations by a friend. She was so moved by what she experienced. And she said, she came up to myself and Barb and she said, "You must let me help tell the story of cultural conversations." And that is just what she did. Through a wonderful collaboration, we created the 2015-2016 and Best Practices Manual. Sujata is not only a coach, she has been on this stage and has shared her own stories with this audience. Please welcome Sujata.
Thank you so much, Carol, and good evening, everyone. As Carol mentioned, I have had so many amazing experiences through cultural conversations. I consider it my gateway to making Seattle a home for me with all the connections I made and continue to make. And I'm delighted to have this opportunity today to introduce our storytellers for this evening. These last few months, it's been my pleasure to meet them and listen to their stories as I worked with them. Our storytellers have come from different parts of the world and the US to make their home in the Pacific Northwest. They've carried with them memories, hopes, and dreams. And today they're sharing these gifts with us, and we must appreciate and acknowledge that. The art of storytelling lies not only with the storytellers, but also with the listeners. Both the teller of the tale and the listener of the story have an equal role to play. As the storyteller draws us into their world, we must respect their experiences, perspectives, and learnings. And these may be similar or different to our own. And we must also acknowledge the emotions that we may feel when we hear the stories. In this virtual space, our ask of you is listen, be engaged, and be bold in recognizing the storytellers, when they complete their story. So, clap your hands, snap your fingers, or just create a heart with your joining your hands. Let me tell you a story is what we often hear as a child, and it's time for that again. So let's sit back and listen with our hearts and minds. Our first storyteller of the evening is Francois Mukaba. Francois came to the US from the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa in 2016 to pursue his passions of technology and music. He found his community in Bellevue and is currently working at the Boston Consulting Group as a software engineer. We're going to share a short video that Francois has created to introduce his homeland and his family. And after the video, Francois is going to share his story. So let's sit back and watch the video.
Hey, Francois, did you go to Bellevue High School? I was born 8,000 miles away, pretty far, bro. I grew up in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the center of Africa. The capital is Kinshasa. It's a small urban city where traffic gets crazy. People use bikes to commute. It's pretty trendy. Most areas are rural. People live off their trade. That's my daddy after running a boot camp in his village. Let's see my family. Yeah, I have 3 sisters and I'm the second. To send us to the States, Daddy worked hard to get the bacon. Mommy took care of us and the house, our family's hero. Now let's get down to some facts about the Congo. I am a programmer. The slide is like a readme. If I forget citation, the data is from Wiki. Congo boasts in diversity of languages and ethnicities, a collectivistic society where most people believe in Christianity. It's a poor country, and there's much more to say. But that's a conversation for another day.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. My name is Francois Mukaba. I hope that was a helpful video to get to know a little bit where I've come from. But it's time for me to just share a little bit with you my story, how I came to the United States, and what the experience has been like for me. So I moved to the United States in 2016. I came here as an international student to study at Bellevue College, computer science. Some of the reason why I came, I wanted to pursue computer science and do some music, and just felt like my country wasn't a lot of like room for that in terms of like career. So that's why I moved here. And I had some expectation coming to the United States, like maybe most people that move here, from media and video and movies, like everything that we see from TV is like America is just like this American dream, this kind of almost like heaven on earth, what really appealed to me from America was like the ability to be yourself, to do whatever you want to do. You have freedom of like beliefs, freedom of speech, and all these things. And so very good, I thought it was just a good stage for a human self-actualization. And so I jumped on that board. And so I came here like in the fall, and the first couple of months, a little bit of my background as well. I mentioned Congo is like very like Christian, like 90% of people will claim to be Christian per the data. And so I grew up into like a Christian home, a Catholic home. And so a lot of like, like a lot of like values and stuff. And I kind of grew away from that growing up. And so I just wanted to come in a spot where I could just be me and not to be like religious, or so I thought. And so like the expectation, the first couple of months coming here was exactly what I thought. We started ESL, taking classes, and I just went out, like meeting new people, like I don't have any parents to look after me. So you just go crazy in life and do some things like dating apps, trying to meet girls, trying to do this, just trying to have fun, what you can think about. And then it worked for a couple of months, but at the beginning, we had to face reality, so cultural shock there. So some of it is like Congo is very like collectivistic, and so people will say hi to, and they really mean it. But when I came here, like the first people, like they see me, they give me like smiles and stuff, and then I was like, okay, and then I'll smile back, but then it didn't feel genuine to me after a while. People meet you and then they forget your name, the second letter, and then all of those things just felt like it was kind of fake. But I was like, yeah, it's okay, like just gonna keep moving on. And so when I came here, I had like a great support system as well. Like the first was my community of at Bellevue College. We have a New Young Congolese Scholars. It's just a group of Congolese students that have come here to study at Bellevue College. And so it's about like 170 or 200 right now. But back then in 2016, when I first came, it was probably like 30 people, 30 students. So that community is was very helpful to me, because you can feel homesick, but when you have like all these people from your culture, it's very helpful. Like we have an annual gala that we do. So I have my Congolese food really next to me. I have friends and family. I speak 4 languages now, including English. I speak a couple languages from home, and then just being able to speak your native language with people like friends is just very helpful. And we share books, we help each other like find room, and like we really include each other in our lives. That was my first community, but I had another community, which was the church. Very funny enough, like I came here to run away from all religion and stuff, but when I came here like 2 months later or so, I had an encounter with Jesus and I became a Christian. And so I found the church, Blue Sky Church is in Bellevue. And so, yeah, that church helped me with my spiritual life and just growing as a human and Christian. But yeah, so one time we were doing delivery with friends. We were going to the inner city in Redmond, I think. And then there was our church does like food delivery for like some areas. We fill our bags and then we go and then we deliver. And then first thing I noticed there, I was super shocked. I saw poverty, you know, something that I didn't think I would find in the United States. I saw homelessness and I saw different things like that. And that just like made me like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect to see this here. This is supposed to be America, right? This is supposed to be the land of the free, and people are supposed to be like, just like this fake reality that I have about America, right? Like, oh, it's heaven, right? Everything's supposed to be good. But it wasn't. And that was my first shock, the first thing that shocked me there. I remember one time I was meeting with my friend after church, and then outside of his house, there was this girl that just sat there and she had nowhere to go because the housing spot where she got kicked out. And so a lot of things like that just got my heart a little heavy about like things. And then that's where it leads to just go to 2020 when we had a lot of, you guys know what happened with the racial injustice, the climate, and all of those things, the George Floyd and all of the events. And then I always thought I was that kind of person. Like at church, I used to be a leader and help people just like navigate through things in life. And so I used to think that was that person that to be strong for people, but I didn't know I needed to also realize that I was a human, and I was about to make that connection and understand that for myself. And so I was helping friends process things, you know, like 2020, everything is hard. I'm sitting with my friends, African-Americans, Africans, and I'm just talking to, like, helping them, you know, praying for them, being there for them. And then, you know, when you do that a lot, there's a baggage, and I'm naturally very compassionate. And so I just tend to accumulate things in my mind. And so after that, and even through that, I was about to graduate at the end, and then I had school. I was stressed about school. I didn't know what stress was until then, or I thought. And so I'm an international student. You have to think about work. You have to think about your work permit after school. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna go back home? You know, I'm not American, so I don't have the legal right to stay here indefinitely. And so a lot of stress accumulated through that year, but I always shove it down. I always told myself, just go, keep going, move forward. You know, it's gonna get better. I never took time to take a break. All of that went down for me one time. So I remember the Capitol Hill upheaval in Seattle, and just remember, oh, people are shooting and things of that nature. And that triggered something in me. I didn't share in that video, but when I was about like 8-year-old, I got stuck into a rebellion in my country. You know, I was a kid, I was going to school, and then my sister, out of nowhere, there's a rebellion, a coup d'etat that they wanted to get the president out. And so I got caught into that, people shooting over my head. I was trying to catch the bus. The bus couldn't leave because rebels were coming and stuff of that nature. I was trying to join my sister. And then that day they were able to securely take the bus and leave. But like we got split. Our school were like neighbors. And so I stayed there until like 8 p.m. or so. I just hunkered down with other students and teachers until at night it kind of ended. My parents tried to send my uncle come to get me. He couldn't make it all the way because of the shooting. And so they went back. I got back that day at night by myself. I lost one sandal and I got there. I didn't know I was when they dropped me at the bus. So I asked people around, they led me there. I get there and on the street, I see my mom and my parents. They are like very anxious. And then they see me, they're happy. They give me a drink and I take a shower. I go to bed and that was it. We didn't talk about it that much after that. And so that's trauma. And so that stayed there. And I didn't know how much of that I was carrying until I made that connection with what happened Capitol Hill. And so feeling is very, that really led fear down and anxiety. After that, I had to go through therapy for a couple months, you know, just to like unearth what was going on in my heart. And so a friend of mine at church recommended therapy, actually. And therapy was really helpful because it allowed me to be vulnerable, just talk about what's going on in my heart and everything. And so at the end of that, there is three things I took away from this story. One of it is humans are humans everywhere. Congo and the United States are very different. Like people go through stuff, but people go through stuff in both countries, and we are still human. And having expectation of America as like heaven was like really hurtful, for me. And other things that I realize is, and that includes me, I'm also human, I'm not a superhuman, it's okay to struggle and be vulnerable. I grew a lot just opening up about my struggles and everything that was in my heart. And I feel like I really got led by God to do that, and with people that I trusted and that were there for me. And so just a human being, you are also just human beings, and it's okay to struggle. It's okay to take a day off. It's okay to say, hey, let's talk about this tomorrow. The last thing I learned is that Congo is home. So that's my land, and that will never change. You don't choose where you are born. And so that's forever in my heart. But I'm discovering that there is another type of home, beyond borders, beyond lands, beyond landmarks. There is a home of in my heart that is filled with the people that I've met throughout this journey in my life. That's like, I feel like that's sometimes I feel like, wow, that's like even more important, because I'm not home in Congo, but I have people, I have a support, I have people that I can call and that are kind of like my family here. Though I live with my sister as well, they're also great support to me. But yeah, that's to wrap up my story. I hope that you were able to take something out of that and that was helpful to you. So thank you so much, Sujata. The floor is yours.
Francois, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your courage in acknowledging that being vulnerable can make us strong will, I'm sure, resonate with so many of us, especially in light of what's happening the last 2 years. And also what we've learned that, the importance of having a supportive community. And we're so glad that you found yours in Bellevue. Let's take a brief pause to just reflect on hearing what, Francois has shared before we move on. So if you can just pause for a minute, close our eyes, and just think about what Francois has shared with us. Thank you. And now let's welcome our next storyteller, Nayeli Mendeville. Nayeli is passionate about providing pathways to help people achieve their dreams. Her experiences growing up in Arizona influenced her to spread her wings, travel to different cities, and find her own place in the world. Please join me in welcoming Nayeli.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nayeli and I'm a community connector. What does that mean? To me, it's about helping people navigate where they are to where they need to be. And as I take you on my journey, I hope you will also understand why I do what I do. I made my way to the Pacific Northwest in 2001 as a graduate student in international relations at the University of Washington. I never imagined staying here. I thought I would be living in far and exotic places, but I remained here because I found places and a need where I could put my bilingual and bicultural skills to good use. I have dedicated my professional life to working in nonprofit, specifically in the field of education and immigration. My work began in Bellevue in 2005. First for the Girl Scouts of Western Washington, where I spearheaded their Hispanic initiative, and until recently at Bellevue School District as a family interventionist, focusing on engaging families with the school system and connecting them to local community resources. I also work with the Eastside Pathways and am currently a King County Library Systems Welcoming Ambassador, as well as a Family Engagement Specialist at Launch, a local Seattle early learning nonprofit. Many jobs and many hats, but all of my roles have centered around connecting and engaging members of the community. I want to make sure families feel welcomed and supported while navigating their way through systems, whatever they may be. I want people to know and see the opportunities that they can have for themselves and their children. And this is likely based on my own experiences growing up within an immigrant family. And now for my backstory. I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, a city that is just 45 minutes away from the border. I myself did not go through the hardship of leaving my country of origin for another, but my Mexican parents did. And before that, my Chinese grandfather did too. I didn't cross the border as an immigrant, but growing up so close to the border influenced me greatly. I grew up feeling Mexican with my Mexican roots less than an hour away from me on the other side of the border, and as American as one can be in a borderland like Southern Arizona. And so I am not from one place nor the other. I am both. And that's sometimes hard for others to understand. People like me are not immigrants per se, and yet we are because we navigate the systems for our first generation parents who are learning to live here. But we're also not quite second generation because we don't know how to navigate those systems. So we're kind of caught in between, a 1.5 generation of sorts. Besides growing up with family on both sides of the border, there were other experiences I witnessed that shaped my views on who I am. Experiences that are uncommon or are unheard of for non-border children. My family would spend Monday through Fridays in the US and weekends with family in Mexico. I was sent away on summer vacations to stay with friends and family in Mexico so I wouldn't forget who I was and where I came from. This back and forth travel allowed me to see and experience what border and Mexican life was like. On the border, I saw immigrants and deportees. I saw people coming into the US, and I also saw people being forced to leave the US on buses. People who looked like me and my family. I learned about the duality of being legal versus illegal, documented versus undocumented, and the repercussions of it. Despite those distinctions, I learned to recognize that those traits are not real, that we are all fundamentally the same. I became aware of what privilege is, citizenship, gender, family, education, and what one could do with it. I learned the importance of trust and discretion because deportation and separation could happen to anyone in my community, people I knew, friends, neighbors, or family. When I look back, it was these experiences that I saw as a child that influenced what I wanted to do. Seeing the flip side of immigration, witnessing deportations of people regardless of age and gender, and also seeing people from other countries moving here. I recall one incident in particular. I was 10 or so years old and learned of a girl from Central America about my age who was staying at the convent next door to my after-school program site. She was in Tucson to have surgery to have a bullet removed from her elbow. She was a victim of the Civil War in her country. And I so wanted to befriend her, to share some joy and cultural traditions with her and her mom, especially because it was the holiday season. However, the sharing that occurred was not from me to her, but the other way around. She shared about her life in the countryside, the losses her family had had with the war, and what resiliency looked like. When I think of her, I recall her stoicism. I was surprised by all someone so young had lived. And once again, I saw the privilege I had in my life. It was my first understanding that good people live in circumstances beyond their control. People leave their homes for so many reasons, in search of a safety, a better life, and future for themselves. These experiences were probably building the foundation of who I wanted to be and guided the work I wanted to do. It also made me curious about what was beyond the borderland I lived in. My family is a typical conservative Mexican patriarchal family, where a girl is expected to grow up, get married, and have children. My family is happy to live in Arizona, but I knew I wanted something different. So at 18, I left my conservative home for an East Coast all-women's college, a place that my mother and friends and family back home too say made me an American or a libertine. I feel differently. I say it allowed me to question and not conform to the rigidity of the culture I had grown up in. I say it exposed me to new experiences, ideas, and thoughts, people, and cultures. It taught me to navigate new systems for my own survival as a first-generation student. It helped me embrace my identity as a Latina woman in the United States. This meant I didn't have to conform to the traditional Mexican idea of my value being rooted in being a mother or a wife. I could choose to be an independent and self-sufficient woman living life on my terms. The world opened up for me with opportunities such as being able to study and work abroad, to travel and live alone, to know that I can provide and survive on my own. I don't have to fear worst case scenarios because I know I can and will always manage. None of this would have been possible had I stayed in Arizona. The work I do is important to me, not because I feel that I am a role model or an agent of change. I am who I am because of so many people who had faith in me as I was growing up. I was fortunate to encounter people in my youth who motivated and encouraged me to work hard, who had faith in what I could accomplish and where I could go despite being a brown girl who would be the first in her family to do all that. I didn't know what I could do or how I could do it, and was helped by people who knew how. Throughout my life, I have been fortunate to have had Nayeli fans or mentors, people who encouraged or rallied for me. Whether it was Katie or Charlie motivating me to indulge in my love for reading or sharing their college experiences and telling me I could have that too, and telling me about places I have never heard of. Mr. Nevin and Mr. Portillo, who believed in my potential and freely referred me to organizations that would fund my unpaid internships. To finding mentors like Sandy, who showed me what a white ally looks like and told me about always leaving people wowed, allowing them to walk out with dignity. And Lourdes, who took me under her wings and helped me network and learn my way around Bellevue. To colleagues who became friends, like Cecilia, who modeled going after opportunities fearlessly because I deserve to, and Ken, who helps me figure out what I don't know or don't know that I do know. These and many more I respect and hope to imitate in some shape or form. So what I do now, I call it paying it back and paying it forward. I want the people I work with, young people, particularly young women who look like me, to know that they too can do things, that there are opportunities and choices for them, that they can break out from what they think are their boundaries and go beyond. My work as that connector is very important to me. Growing up is so challenging. And when you are deemed as different because you don't know the language or don't see role models that look like you, it is even more challenging. And we need more connectors, more role models, more agents of change. It takes a village, not only to raise a child, but for an entire community to grow and feel safe, healthy, and welcomed in our community. Through my work and the experiences I have had, I have learned that the Latino community, or anyone who feels marginalized or underrepresented, wants to be recognized and acknowledged. They need a hand up, not a hand down or a handout. This is why I have made it my mission to be a bridge or connector in the community. Because I am bicultural and bilingual, my work has naturally channeled me to work with Latino community, but I believe in bringing different community voices to the table so they can be heard and incorporated into the conversations that we, networks, organizations, and society at large are having. With my work with King County Libraries as a welcoming ambassador, where I help immigrants, refugees, and anyone new to the community find information and services to facilitate their arrival in King County. I am also the Family Engagement Specialist at Launch, a local early learning nonprofit in Seattle, helping to leverage family engagement and support to reduce barriers to academic success and fostering a sense of belonging for the well-being and success of students. As I said when I started my story, I want to help people get from where they are or have been to where they need to be. It's a rite of passage we all go through sooner or later, but it's so much easier when not done alone.
Thank you, Nayeli. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and for helping us understand what it's like to grow up in a border town. The work that you do and the passion you show for it is so much needed, especially in these times. Thank you for sharing your story. Carol, I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay. Next slide, please, Teresa. Hi, my name is Carol, as I said earlier, and I'd love to introduce my dear colleague, Ben Shahabi, the man behind the lens. You know, Ben works for the city as an IT content developer. And back in 2018, we were so honored to bring Ben from behind the lens to in front of the lens to tell his story at a Cultural Conversations in 2018. His story is so relevant today. If you've already heard this story before, I invite you to lean in again and listen closely. We will show a 3-minute digital video clip of Ben's story, something that was prepared for my storyboards that we had on display here at City Hall. And then Ben is going to join us on the other side for a few comments. So Sarah, if you can start that video, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Ben Shahabi and work for City Manager's Office as the IT content developer. I was born in Iran and remember a happy early childhood. When I was 7, the Iranian Revolution toppled the monarchy. The new regime put an end to much of the Western modernity. T-shirt, blue jean, non-religious music, and movies from the Western countries were banned, and women were required to wear veils. As I got older, I sought a career in film industry. Strike regulations on the film industry and heavy censorship from the government made it difficult to fulfill my desire to work in this form of arts. During this time, I met Mona, my future wife. Mona was one of the Baha'is' faith. Since the revolution, Baha'is had been systematically persecuted, tortured, and imprisoned. For Mona's protection, her family decided to send her to Turkey. I decided to go with her. Within 2 weeks, I left everything and everyone I knew. We married in Turkey and waited 18 months before being granted refugee asylum to the US. Mona and I arrived first in Arizona to stay with relatives. My first job was a gas station attendant because it offered a better option for learning English. We then relocated to Chicago, California, and finally Redmond, Bellevue. We fell in love with the beauty of this area, and we were happy for the opportunity it offered. While working as a driver for the delivery company, I saw a film crew at the Microsoft and wondered, why can't that be me? I prayed for the opportunity to return to the field. Arts fulfill my passion for the seeing things from creative angles and making others feel comfortable in front of the camera. In 2012, I enrolled in Bellevue College and began work on the film project in partnership with the college and Bellevue City Hall. 2 years after delivering boxes and seeing the film crew at Microsoft, I was now on a film crew of my own. I have never forgotten what it took for Mona and me to be here, and so now I work to encourage, teach, and mentor others. When I see someone pushing a delivery cart, I do not overlook them. I think they could be me, someone who had a different life, full of talent and dreams. I don't just tell them go to college. I ask, how can I help you?
Ben, thank you so much for sharing that story again. I don't know, what does that feel like to see that story, encapsulated 3 minutes, telling a bit of your story.
Yeah, and one of my picture I see, oh my God, I was so younger. So hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is great opportunity. I know I got 2 minutes and it's so hard, but let me start with this. We all came for a reason. Some of us because of the war, some of us different reason. But imagine the kids in Ukraine were playing yesterday, and because of this damn war, they gotta leave everything. They may lose the parents, the family member, and they gotta go somewhere in the world. So it's really tough. I was 8 years old when Iran and Iraq war happens, and I still, after 45 years, I still remember the time of the alarm silent. We have to go to the underground to be safe. And I was worried about, oh my God, my parents, can they come faster? Am I gonna lose them? So still I'm thinking about that. So it's really hard. So I just wanna bring it back to you guys. Can you close your eyes and imagine what if it's happened to you? Any reason you have to leave your country now for war or for any reason. What do you expect for the other countries when you go there? What do you want from there? Don't you want they welcome you warm, they accepting you, they respecting you, they don't judging you because of color, religion, and all those things. So it's the same thing. And when we leave everything behind, it includes family, include anything we have, money. I didn't have any things to came here, me and Mona. And so we have a fear, we have a lots of mixed feeling. So of course, if I see someone make me smile, try to understand me, give me a chance to introduce myself, I say why I'm here and why I go through all those things and I'm here, who I am, what do I have to offer. So have this opportunity to listen us, to accepting, to respecting us is huge thing, at least it was for me. It's 2 minutes, it's too short, I'm so sorry. I want to read a poem. Probably lots of you know the Rumi, but this guy is Sa'di. He was from southern part of Iran called Shiraz. Let me to say it Farsi and I translate it, not me, I read the translation for English. Thank you. بنی آدم اعضای یک پیکرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند. چو عضوی را به درد آورد روزگار دگر عضوها را نماند قرار. تو که از محنت دیگران بیغمی نشاید که نامت نهند آدمی. Human beings are members of a whole in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is afflicted with pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you have no sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. Love and peace to all of you.
Ben, thank you so much for sharing with us today. We're in these challenging times, and I knew that your story is one that endures, especially when we look at it with fresh eyes in light of what's happening right now, in different parts of the world, and in particularly in Ukraine. So thank you for reminding us of what stories people who may have immigrated here are currently carrying, you know, how this triggers memories from childhood, and how you have that heart for humanity. And it begins by creating that space, that welcoming, the hello, and believing in the dreams that people also carry when they come from so far away, as we welcome the world. So thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing tonight.
Absolutely. Can I add one more thing? I just want to say, we as American people, we are so grateful to have this opportunity to welcome others and worlds. Not other countries, not other people have this opportunity. So we are so blessed to having this opportunity.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you all.
So audience, I just want to, you know, just take a moment here. I think we can, well, let's just hold it here for a minute to thank Sujata and the storytellers this evening, Francois, Nayeli, and Ben. We appreciate all the hard work that you put into tonight's presentation, the heart and soul and the sharing, and with the hope that somebody learned something new. It triggered a particular feeling, and will provide an offer of support, you know, to people moving forward. Mark, did you want to share something with our storytellers?
Well, thank you, each, the three of you, and Sujata, for working with and just helping people to feel comfortable to share their story. I just appreciate the friendship of Nayeli, Ben, and Francois. We are just so grateful for your contributions tonight and to our community. So thank you for the vulnerability of sharing your story. It means much to all of us.
Okay. Thank you.